All right, I gotta tell you something, but don't tell anybody, okay?
Okay.
I got a Venmo. I've got a couple of Venmos now from someone that I don't know. They just sent me money. I don't know what to do
How
with it.
much? How much money are we talking here?
Not insignificant amount. The second one was like $30 for pizza.
I was expecting a little bit more, and you said not insignificant.
I mean,
I
I
thought
would
they sent
miss
you like rent
30.
money.
That's not like $2,000. No, but I don't know what to do about it, so it's just sitting there. Like I feel like it's part of a scam, but I don't know what the scam would be. So I'm just letting the money sit there.
It's there are scams of that kind, like that start with like money being sent, and then it like it's expecting engagement. Like, can you decline it? Like, can you just not accept it, or like
It's
does it
just in my
automatically add
account.
it?
Yeah, it's just automatically there.
Can you like report the transaction or something?
Uh, I did a very cursory Google and couldn't find any help on what to do about it. So I'm just letting it sit there for now.
It's weird.
So if any listeners, if you're the one that accidentally sent that money, let me know. I'll send it to you. All right, let's play that theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by my misunderstood half-brother co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Half brother. Well, do you know something I don't?
Like I said, you're misunderstood. Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Comic Book Movie Month, and this week we are talking the 2023 film Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Andrew, what is your history with this movie? Did you see it in theaters?
I did. I see lots of things in theaters, but this was no exception. This was December 2023. It is a big superhero release, well, such as they are. It was kind of known at the time that this was basically the end of the DCEU. I believe James Gunn's Superman had already been announced. We were 6 months removed from The Flash at that point, and about a year post Black Adam. So the last kind of vestiges of kind of maintaining or scrapping or salvaging, rather, that universe had all kind of come to pass and gone on. And this is kind of what we were left with. The final note of the DCEU, as it were called.
Yeah, wild. I did not see this one in theaters because I didn't see the first one in theaters or otherwise. I never saw the first Aquaman. No particular reason. I heard it was really good. I heard nothing but good stuff about that movie. But we'll probably have some talks about the DCEU as a whole. But, I wasn't really sold on the universe, so I didn't make it a point to see every single entry. I saw most of them, but Aquaman just found a way to slip through my fingers. Preparing for this podcast was the first time I watched both Aquaman and Aquaman 2. I watched both movies within the span of a week, which I was very interested to do because they have very different receptions, which we'll get into. But that first one was, just as far as both critically and just kind of general audience wise, seen as one of the best movies in the DCEU. People were really into it. And then I heard not great things about the sequel, and I was kind of wondering where that difference might be, where the fall off was. And I'll be honest, maybe a little preview of things to come. I don't see much difference between these two movies, but we'll talk about it. We'll get there. Let's talk about when this movie comes out. It's released December 22nd of 2023. It's made on a budget of over $200 million, anywhere between 205 and 210 million. At the box office, it just brings in 439.4 million, which feels so funny to say it's only 439 million. That's a lot of dollars, but when you got those budgets, you need a little bit more to bring in the profits. Critically, it's not well received, holds just a 33% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. However, I was a little surprised to see the audience score is significantly higher, 79% audience rating, which, like I said, even word of mouth on this one, I didn't hear many great things, but there are defenders out there, clearly, based on that score.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like, I think generally the audience response was that it was pretty similar to the first Aquaman, as far as just, general underwater adventure film. But yeah, it was a little wild that the critics' response to this one was so harsh, when I'm largely in agreement with you that, like, overall this feels pretty similar in tone. It feels pretty similar in execution. I mean, it's same writer, or same co-writer, director with James Wan. We'll talk about him more in a minute. So it did feel a little odd to see that kind of harsh reception. And maybe, again, that's shifting standards, that's shifting expectations after, whatever. But, yeah, it is, it's a little interesting to look back. But obviously, like you said, the audiences seem to come to this. Not a lot in that audience pool. It says 2,500 plus, which, like I said before, that updates to higher numbers as it gets more. So we're looking at less than 5,000 audience reviews there, which is still not insignificant. But generally speaking, audiences felt like they had a good time with it. But critics not having it.
I do think, I think the whole superhero fatigue is usually played up a little bit, or is spoken about like it's a bubble and people are going to stop going to see superhero movies like one day. I don't think it's quite that extreme, but I do think there is some superhero fatigue, and I think 2023 might be the peak of that. The DCEU alone released 4 movies that year. You had Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman. The last 4 movies all released the same year, but you also have The Marvels, which we discussed earlier.
They speed ran that final run of the DCEU there. They're like, all right, boys, wrap this up.
I mean, like you said, word was out that James Gunn was rebooting everything, so interest in the universe was only going to peter down. I think they knew that. So yeah, they got all those out. And on the MCU side, you had Guardians 3 and The Marvels and Ant-Man 3 all releasing. A few other things that are out there. Turtles comes out. So a lot of superhero stuff, a lot of comic book stuff, a lot of shared universe stuff. So this comes out December, the last month of the year. I think fatigue was maybe playing a part in the overall reception and maybe even box office. Taking a look at the creative team, we are basically bringing them back from the first movie. It's written by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick. Interesting career when you dive into it. Their work as a writer, they worked in film for quite a bit before they make the jump to the screenwriting, but their feature debut was Orphan, that mid-budget horror movie you may or may not remember. And then they followed that up with Wrath of the Titans and The Conjuring 2, which I think it's kind of interesting. They're kind of on the sequel train there, but also writes the first Aquaman and then comes back for Aquaman 2. So kind of spanning a few different genres there, but definitely, after they break in with Orphan, kind of working in that big budget Hollywood blockbuster territory.
Yeah, like obviously something like The Conjuring 2 is what gets him into the James Wan circle. And then James Wan would keep him kind of coming back. He would do Conjuring 2, which maybe a little underrated. First Conjuring's really, really great. I think Conjuring 2 is also pretty good. Then he does write Conjuring 3 and 4. Conjuring 4 coming out later this summer or fall. And like I said, he does Orphan First Kill, so he does the Orphan sequel. But yeah, he's entered into that horror. It's almost all exclusively horror, except when he's working with James Wan on something that's not horror. It's kind of funny. Like he writes all horror movies except Aquaman, basically. That's
What
the
about Wrath of the
exception there.
Titans? Would you call that horror?
I would call Wrath of the Titans something
It's scary.
I can't say out loud. It's scary, but not for the reasons you think.
Right. Hashtag.
It's odd that
hashtag
it's
PP.
odd that he writes Wrath of the Titans, but he's not involved in Clash of the Titans. But anyway, yeah. So, like you said, that's the interesting thing to me is we basically run this back. It is David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, which is also a heck of a name. But bringing in that same writer, obviously James Wan shepherding the whole project. Jason Momoa involved with this time too, so yeah, but an interesting career there, and not slowing down despite some of these potential, underperformances. Still, like I said, still out there, still working is David.
And as we've said, it's directed by James Wan. Now, have we had a chance to talk about James Wan's podcast? I don't think officially. I don't think we've covered any of his movies, but I feel like we're always kind of
Saws
circling around his work here. Yeah, he's one of the creators of Saw, directs that original entry, also directs Dead Silence, kind of stays within the horror realm for a little while there. Dead Silence, I never saw it. I heard it's better than you would think. It's better than it looks. But then he directs back-to-back Insidious and The Conjuring, which are great. I think genuinely changes the landscape of horror films, helps usher in sort of the, I don't know, I wish there was a better term for this, elevated horror, but horror movies can now get released all year. They can be like character pieces. There's a lot's been said of like the metaphor horror genre, but I think, well, the Conjuring especially is such a great example of all that, and like how to do it right, how to do it well. And then Insidious is just like a haunted house on the screen. Like, I love that movie so much. It's interesting you say that about The Conjuring 2. I have seen that one. I remember being kind of meh on it. Maybe I need to revisit it. And between these two movies, they both spun a ton of sequels. That's the only sequel I saw from either one. So
I have seen a lot of the expanded Conjuring verse, as it's called. And it has been an interesting ride. Obviously, James Wan only directs Conjuring and Conjuring 2. Now, there are not eight films, I think.
He also only directs the first Saw and the first Insidious, and both of those spawn a ton.
He directs Insidious too.
Oh, excuse me.
Excuse you. Don't come in here with your weak ass nonsense. But
he doesn't direct every entry in any of these horror franchises that go on to have like 6+ movies, is what I'm saying. I guess.
Point simply being that like he starts off this Conjuring universe. There is an Annabelle movie that comes out pretty quickly after the first Conjuring. Largely fails to impress. Doesn't make a lot of impressions. A lot of people kind of note that it is, that it's odd that when James Wan himself directs it, it feels like there's a decent amount of critical appreciation, a decent amount of I lost the word I was going to say. Just a decent amount of appreciation, recognition, whatever, that it's a pretty solid entry. Maybe it's not a Witch or something like that, where you've got the high elevated horror, but they're like, this is above, it's good. But then he's kind of notorious. So he's honestly got two franchises where he directs these kind of above average, highly appreciated sequels, and then they spawn these kind of franchises full of things that people just kind of continually say don't live up to the legacy of that first one. Some interesting things I will point out here in the Conjuring verse. I do like The Conjuring 2. David F. Sandberg, who ends up directing the Shazam movies, does the Annabelle Creation movie, the kind of Annabelle prequel movie. That one I actually think is above average. I think it's actually solid.
That's so
David F.
funny to
Sandberg.
me. You have The Conjuring spin-off Annabelle, prequel to the spin-off Annabelle Creation, and it's like, hey, that one's pretty good. Like, you just follow
Yeah,
like this
like
flow chart.
I had the
Like,
same thought where like I went and saw Annabelle Creation, and then after it was over, I was like, wait, that was good. I was like, huh, what? Like the prequel to the spinoff is somehow better than that, but
it
obviously
reminds
after
me
that,
a little bit of people talking about the Fast and Furious movies, where it's like,
oh, it really
hey,
finds its footing at 5.
Yeah. And speaking of, James Wan directs
Furious 7.
which I think is one of the thumbs up ones that people like. I don't know. I honestly have a hard time
5,
tracking.
6,
but I
7 are kind of the people see as the sweet spot. 5 is still for most like the encapsulation of like if this is what this franchise should be, but 6 and 7 largely follow that same formula. So James Wan, interesting career to say, and then he still finds his chances to like dive back into horror stuff. Obviously, you know, he did Aquaman, and then he followed that up with *Malignant*, which is a movie that I'm a big fan of. I like
So
that
much fun.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then he does Aquaman 2. So I'm like, right now, I don't know that we necessarily know what his next directing project will be. He produces a lot of stuff now. That's a big thing. You look at his filmography, it's like 7 things. It's like 10 things that he's directed, and then like 25 that he's just a producer on. And a lot of that's just, if it's a Saw movie, he's on it as an executive producer. If it's a Conjuring movie, he's on it as an executive producer. A lot of Blumhouse stuff he's on as a producer. But yeah, an interesting career for James Wan. And I do like that he always finds a way to kind of go back to his roots here. And he actually does get a story credit here on Aquaman 2. And I also do want to point out that Jason Momoa himself also has a story credit for this movie, as does a Thomas Paasivet. I don't know who he is. I guess he's a producer. But so a lot of people kind of coming together for this story, but then ultimately it is realized by essentially the same group that made the first film.
I want to tell you about Kale Your Idols, a new Hollywood podcast.
You might not know this, but the 70s are often considered the greatest decade in film history.
No, they know this. Everybody listening already knows about this.
Well, just in case they don't, this is the decade of The Godfather, Star Wars, Jaws, The Exorcist.
Dog Day Afternoon, Killer of Sheep, Shampoo. Are these movies over-discussed? Perhaps, but we're the only podcast that's doing a deep dive into this era.
Again, we're called Kale Your Idols. That's Kale as in Kael, named after the iconic film critic Pauline Kael.
Maybe these movies are extremely familiar to you.
Or maybe you haven't seen any 70s films.
Either way, check out Kale Your Idols.
Kael.
Are you sure we shouldn't change the name?
Well, Andrew, I think it's time that we dive in, which is what I always say, but I get to act like it's a pun this time, and talk about everything we like. All the positives of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Are you ready?
Yes.
After having a child with Mera, Aquaman is juggling his family life with his role as King of Atlantis. But when his nemesis, Black Manta, obtains an ancient power, Aquaman must turn to his brother Orm, free him from banishment, and work together to stop Black Manta before he destroys both the underwater and surface worlds. That's really it. I don't think I'm leaving a lot out. Black Manta kidnaps Arthur Jr., but that's the story. It's all about these two brothers. The hero and villain of the first movie are now reluctantly teaming up, which is usually a good formula, and I think it continues to be in this movie. That's kind of the driving force here, the sort of almost buddy cop dynamic between Aquaman and his half-brother Orm. And boy howdy, I was on board.
Boy howdy. Yeah, I mean,
Does that mean
it's
you
pretty
agree?
straightforward. Yeah, I just an interesting choice of words there. No, it is. It's a, you know, it's kind of the promise of the original. You know, the original obviously was about primarily the struggle with Orm and Arthur over the basically the future of Atlantis. Orm kind of trying to engineer this fight with the surface world. Black Manta featured in that, kind of in the background, and so kind of the supposed promise of that essentially was a sequel where Black Manta was kind of fully formed, and also featured in that first one, I think, were the Trench. They were there, right? The weird monsters, and also builds off of Randall Park's character, kind of seen briefly in the first one as well. So, like, in that regard, like, almost everything from the first one that gets teased pays off here. Like, it's pretty straightforward in that, like, any idea is largely taken care of here. So they do close the book on pretty much all the stuff they set up in the original. And I appreciated that as well, that just, you talk about people being like, they've never resolved that, it's never going to go anywhere. It's like, here, no. Took a while to get Aquaman 2, but once they made it, they took care of everything that was lingering and pretty much closed the book on it, which, by the time you're making this or getting close to its release, you know what the score is. Like, that there's nothing else coming here. So,
yeah.
I think they were smart enough to be like, okay, let's just tie this all up in a bow, basically.
I really like the franchise handling of Black Manta, the franchise just being the Aquaman franchise, because a common complaint with superhero movies, especially the shared universes, is the one-and-done villain. You introduce a cool new villain, and then they're dead by the end of the movie, then we're on to the next one. I think it can be done well, but I understand getting tired of that. Whereas Black Manta, he's like the nemesis of Aquaman. We see him in the first one, he gets his suit, he gets his big Alpha 5 helmet look, right? We get to see him, and he's not killed. We know he's still out there, wants vengeance. He's back in the second one. He's the main villain now. And spoilers, he still has a not definitive death. Like, we know the franchise isn't moving forward, but we know in the universe of this world that it's likely these two will continue to clash again and again. And I like that they keep that up with Black Manta.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a really, really great antagonist to use for this. And they're able to tie him into like this larger Aquaman lore that I don't remember if it's made up for the movie or not. I don't remember. But I think the way they use Black Manta here is really, really good.
Well, we're going to talk about how exactly they use them, all the best scenes in the movie. Before we get to that, we got to do what we always do and start with the cast of this film. And we're going to start with the high point, best casting, best performance of the movie, because every episode we recognize one person goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance. We recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, kick us off. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom?
This is a pretty solid cast, top to bottom. It's a little stacked, if you will. But we talked about him just a second ago, how we thought how Black Manta was used in this movie to great effect. And so in that regard, I've got to go with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as David Kane / Black Manta. He is, first off, I'm just a big fan of Yahya. I think he's doing great work. I liked him in Candyman. I've liked him in Watchmen. So I've liked most of the stuff that I've seen him in. And he's also supposedly playing Wonder Man in the MCU. We'll see if that show ever comes out. But it's but like I said, I've liked pretty much everything I've seen him in. I've heard good things about Ambulance. I still haven't watched it. The Michael Bay movie featuring the greatest actor of all time.
I think you mean Ambulance.
It's Ambulance, is my understanding. But anyway, and I really like him here. I've liked him in, like I said, he was in Us. He was in Trial of Chicago 7. It's good stuff. I've liked his performances pretty much top to bottom. I think he genuinely elevates most of the stuff he's in, and this movie is no exception. The kind of raw vengeance and anger that he feels for Aquaman or towards Aquaman comes through in a fantastic way. There's a coldness to it that really, really works. His interactions with like Randall Park and some of the other characters I think is really, really good. And overall, just that desperation that he feels like wanting to defeat Aquaman and put him in his place for killing his pirate father. It all works. And it's one of those things that on paper, I'm like, oh man, this has got to be a weird thing to do, but he pulls it off in spades. So it's just super cool to see a character like this kind of brought to life with such gravitas isn't the right word, but I'll use it anyway. But it's basically, seeing Aquaman in general just treated with this level of, care and diligence is just cool to see, because he's just this punchline for so many people. And so to see the villains especially kind of given this really prominent role, something that he can really sink his teeth into, I just think it's really, really cool. The fights between Aquaman and Black Manta are super awesome, especially when they both got the tridents. It's just cool stuff. So yeah, taking my Mark Strong for Aquaman 2.
Excellent pick. I love this performance. I love this character. Like I said, I watched both of these movies this week, so I got to see a lot of this guy's work. I love this pick. I mean, you and I, we text a little bit. You sent me one of the lines that he gets to say in this movie. That is a highlight. We'll get to it when we get to scenes, but I love how much this guy hates Aquaman. Really, almost to an absurd degree. I get that Aquaman kind of is responsible for his dad dying, but I mean, his dad is responsible for his dad dying. But
if
how
you guys
much
weren't
blame
pirates,
he puts
this
at
wouldn't
the
have
feet
happened.
of Aquaman for not saving his dad. I mean, it's
Right.
complicated, but he lives to destroy Aquaman. That is really all he cares about, and somehow he still finds a way to be like a little funny and a little endearing, and you kind of root for this guy. You don't necessarily want him to win, but he is just an enjoyable character, and you got to put a lot of that to the credit of Yaya. I think if we were covering the first movie, I think for sure he'd be getting my Mark Strong award. And I still love his character here, but I'm going to go a different direction with my Mark Strong award, Andrew. I
Tisk.
will be giving it to Patrick Wilson, who is also returning from the first movie as Orm Marius. In this movie, formerly known as the Ocean Master, but that's really his comic book character, is the Ocean Master. Mostly a nemesis of Aquaman with varying backstories, but they go with the half-brother thing here. And he, talk about a step up from the first movie. I mean, I liked him in that first movie, but he's kind of just playing the role of villain there. Whereas here, he's sort of reluctant hero. He teams up with Aquaman begrudgingly, and their dynamic is what drives this movie. It's so good. Like, the chemistry between Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson in this movie is greater than the chemistry between Jason Momoa and any other character in either movie. And you can take that however you want. But I love these two on screen together. I love Patrick Wilson playing the straight man, basically, against Jason Momoa's aloof, doing his thing. I love it. I think it's hilarious that he is the younger brother when he is very clearly older than Jason Momoa, but the way he sort of gets picked on and gets frustrated and gets angry, I find it very amusing. I like his gradual turn to the good side throughout this movie. I think it's all done very, very well. I think the dude's got a great look. I think these days Patrick Wilson probably gets his flowers, but the dude had like a 10-year career where he was just silently crushing it in like everything he's in without really getting much recognition. But I think people really come around on the guy. But this is just a great example of this Patrick Wilson, the ultimate utility player. You can put him in anywhere. Alum of the show. I know from The Losers. Maybe.
That's not nice.
Maybe he got a Mark Strong award there. I don't know. Possibly multi-time Mark Strong award winner.
You are also confusing him being in The Losers.
Oh, no.
He was actually was the A-Team.
Of course. I knew I would do that. Regardless, we covered both movies, Andrew. They're basically the same movie that came out the same year. But yes, I do remember quite enjoying him there. And given that he was...
Did we not do Watchmen?
We did do Watchmen. Yeah. So he's probably picked up a Mark Strong
in
award.
The Watchmen show. He's not
right, yeah, I know. We did the Watchmen movie, though.
I'm joking because you said yeah twice.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. We are.
Yeah, actually is also an alum of the show from Matrix Resurrection. So,
Oh, is he the new Morpheus?
yes, he is.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Man, we got to get in sync here, Andrew. We just had like two separate conversations simultaneously. Yeah, anyway, Patrick Wilson's great. He's probably got a Mark Strong award before, but he's definitely got one now because he's my pick for this movie.
and this is a really, really good choice. Patrick Wilson, like you said, from talking about those Insidious films early on, talking about the Conjuring films. Like, here's the thing I'll say about the Conjuring films. Like, I don't really buy the Ed and Lorraine Warren stories for the most part. I have a book about them on my shelf here somewhere called The Demonologist that's just about a bunch of their stories. And for every one I read where I'm like, yeah, that's kind of creepy, there's about two more where I'm like, yeah, right. And generally speaking, the stories you hear about the actual Ed Warren are not great. I actually almost went and saw Lorraine Warren speak about 10 years ago because she was still doing speaking appearances. But the chemistry he has with Vera Farmiga in those movies is almost completely what carries them, even if it's not necessarily a reflection of real life. But even his performances in the Insidious movies, like, he's really, really great in those, especially those first two. And then he does actually come back for Insidious 5. He actually directs Insidious 5, Patrick Wilson does, which I thought was super cool. And then actually also sings a song with Ghost on the soundtrack. So Patrick Wilson does everything, folks.
He sings in Conjuring 2 as well, right?
He does the Elvis
sings
song.
the Elvis song, yeah.
He's also in this little musical called Phantom of the Opera, where he sings a lot. And he basically plays Raoul in Phantom of the Opera, which is like one of the main characters. So he's certainly no stranger to all of that, but just the super talented actor. Done tons of great stuff. And yeah, I don't disagree with this pick at all. I think he brings a lot to this. The kind of buddy road trip dynamic that he has with Jason Momoa. The contrast there is perfect. Just classic. Like, he's the strategic, reserved one, and Jason Momoa is kind of the sonic boom next to him. That's just, he looks kind of like
Make it up as you go
representation of a sonic boom. But otherwise, just really good stuff. And I'm reading here that apparently he will be starring in a television adaptation of Cape Fear, which will be weird. Featuring Javier Bardem as Max Cady.
This is for TV?
Yeah, apparently.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know who's it for. Apple TV Plus. So Amy Adams and Patrick Wilson is the couple that Javier Bardem.
So it's a streaming film, which sounds so different than a made-for-TV movie.
Is it a movie? No, it says television series.
Oh, TV. Okay. You said made-for-TV adaptation. I thought you said like made-for-TV movie. Isn't that funny though? Like, you hear made-for-TV movie, you're like, oh, that's, washed-up actors, that's low budget. But you hear streaming movie, you're like, okay, that's basically just a normal movie these days.
Yeah, these days, yeah. Except somehow they all look the same. It's odd.
Well, of course, Jason Momoa is in this movie. He is the titular Aquaman alum of the show, of course, because we talked about Justice League previously. So we talked about him in this exact role. Andrew, I have a question for you about Jason Momoa. Now,
sure.
I haven't seen a ton of his stuff. I think he probably is most notable being in Game of Thrones, and then very quickly gets the Aquaman role. I know he shows up as a villain at some point in the Fast and Furious movies, but I don't think I've seen those. He's got a small part in what's the Ryan Gosling movie from a couple years ago? The Fall Guy. Yes. And he's pretty silly there. He's
playing himself there. So
he's in the Minecraft movie, which I haven't seen, but I've seen a ton of trailers for. What I'm getting at is Jason Momoa, he's like a very muscular, attractive guy, but he's always being pretty goofy. I guess my question is, would you say he's playing against type, or is aloof buff guy just his type?
He's a himbo, man.
Okay.
It's a dude bimbo. That's a terribly reductive term, and I'm sorry to have said it out loud. But that's, I don't know. Anytime I see Jason Momoa, I'm like, this dude's a himbo. Like, he's just jacked to the gills, and he's just playing, basically, he's playing every part like he's basically the Joker.
But do you think it's like, oh, it's so funny that this, like, good-looking guy is doing this, or you think, I mean, I guess it's not actually
man.
him. What does that mean?
Anybody can do anything now, man.
Okay, fair enough.
Also, I like how you say he shows up and as a villain in the Fast and the Furious franchise at some point. He shows up as a villain in the last one. He's only been in one. And it's the most recent one.
I thought for sure he had been in 2. Is John Cena in 9 and he's in 10? But isn't there like a 10 part 2 coming?
Supposedly, like there's actually been like no development on Fast and the Furious 11. Like almost none.
I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm just trying to be a cool guy with that series. I really have a hard time keeping up with it and haven't seen them all. Like I'm not trying to be like, oh, I don't know anything. I know
tell
he's
you
in it
this.
at some point.
Fast 10 cost almost $400 million, which is insane.
Crazy.
Made $715 million. So there's a lot of questions about cost. And this is the one where like I think Justin Lin was gonna direct it, and then he left, and then like Louis Leterrier had to come in like in a week and like rewrite the script and do all sorts. So it's like the whole production of Fast 10. There's probably a whole documentary about Fast 10 about like how that movie came to be. But I will say this: Jason Momoa's performance as basically the Joker is a highlight. Like it's truly It's funny because obviously Fast and the Furious is Vin Diesel's franchise and it's his thing. But Jason Momoa feels like the only person in Fast 10 that understands the movie he's in. Like everybody, like, you know, Vin Diesel and everybody else in the movie are like, the weight I carry protecting this family as I race these fast cars through dams and up and down. It's like they're taking the objectively insane actions around them, but trying to bundle it up with this, like, the heavy moral weight of doing what must be done. Whereas Jason Momoa has a scene where he's painting a dead guy's toenails and says, all right, 2 guys are going to be here later to bury you. And it's been nice. Like, he literally cocks the 2 dead guys like they're real and then bids them farewell and says, don't worry, some guys will be here soon to bury you and it's going to be fine. Like, he's speaking to them like they're real people. And it's just, if there's a greater dichotomy of that movie, like, I don't know what it is, because Jason Momoa gets it and nobody else does, which is odd because you would assume then that it's Jason Momoa that doesn't understand, but no, he does understand. It's everybody else that doesn't. And apparently the performance actually bothered Vin Diesel to the point that, like, I don't even know if this dude will be in the second one, like, or the next one. Like, apparently Vin Diesel wanted it to be this, like, serious, like, drama type thing, and Jason Momoa was like, nah, man, we're racing cars while we mess stuff up. Like, and then The Rock was in the post sequence for that, like a weird, like, reconciliation between Vin Diesel and The Rock. But then there was also, like, there was going to be like a Fast 10.5 with The Rock's character, and then it would come back to like Fast 11. That franchise has become such a giant mess that it's kind of impressive how it's become that, given how it started with what was basically a Point Break remake.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what the Fast and the Furious is. It's Point Break. That's what it is, literally.
Yeah.
No question. It's Point Break with cars. And somehow it's become, Vin Diesel thinks this villain is too over the top. The last movie cost $400 million. We don't know when we're going to get to make the next one. There's also a spin-off somewhere or an interlude movie being made with, like, it somehow turned into that when it started with Point Break with cars. Almost impressive.
The casting of Jason Momoa as Aquaman, I remember being a pretty big deal, because when you're adapting DC and you look at, you know, the main players, the main heroes, at that time, like in pop culture, Aquaman, I mean, he's been the butt of a joke for the good part of 30 plus years. Yeah, probably since like Super Friends, right? I mean, you know, Robot Chicken has tons of jokes. Like, people just don't take it seriously. Like, he's the guy that can talk to fish. That's the lamest powers. He
Yeah,
looks goofy.
You're very
So,
clever, guys.
I think casting someone that does not look like the traditional Aquaman, and looks cool. I mean, I think it was a very smart move. There's that like famous picture of him like half in the water with all his tattoos and his long hair, like when the casting was announced, and I think everyone is just like immediately sold. And then they see that movie, and he's got, he's very charismatic and kind of goofy and rough around the edges, and people were into it. I think it's very smart to sort of have a fresh approach for Aquaman, again, given where he was like in greater pop culture. So for that, yeah, it's cool. It's good casting. I think he's good at the, again, rough around the edges parts. The like, oh man, I kind of just want to chill. This stuff's really heavy. Oh dude, oh bro, that's all good. When it gets a little more closer to like the emotional core, I think I'm a little less sold. But again, I just think it's smart casting for where Aquaman was in pop culture, and obviously it paid off, at least for that first movie anyway.
I agree. Obviously, the biggest way to overcome the stigma of Aquaman is to cast Khal Drogo. Like, get that big, massive dude from Game of Thrones. Get him to be Aquaman. And I think there was obviously an interest. Like, obviously, Jason Momoa is born in Hawaii. He's got that Hawaiian ancestry, which includes the Maori type lineage, which he uses here a little bit. He speaks Maori at certain points. And I think that the idea of casting someone like that to be with that kind of heritage to be Aquaman, I think that was very well received. Obviously, he's got this super, cool look that obviously is going to add to Aquaman. And it's not dissimilar from how Aquaman is looked at times. Obviously, Aquaman just being a blonde white dude instead, but the long hair, the beard, Aquaman had evolved to look like that at a certain point. But it seemed like a great move. Basically, like, if you're going to make Aquaman and you want to make him cool on screen, this is how you do it. So generally speaking, I think his casting was pretty solidly received. All things considered.
Amber Heard is back as Mera, and this is the whole thing because during the productions, when at the high-profile stuff between her and Johnny Depp, and some people were like, oh, Amber Heard's crazy, and some people were like, no, Johnny Depp is crazy, and then the real ones were like, they're both terrible people, what are we doing here? You don't have to choose sides. There was a lot of hubbub made about reshoots to this movie to cut her out of it, which really just results in her having less screen time, but she's still there. She's in the beginning of the movie, she's in the end, the character's there. There's not really much more I want to say about it, but she's not in the movie that much. But what a weird thing this was.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. There's really not much more to dive into there. I think if you can go through the entirety of the Depp Heard trial and escape with any mindset that one of them is somehow like innocent, like I don't know how you can read that coming out of that. To me, it's all pretty clear that these were both two very toxic people that both abused the other, and there's no winners there is kind of where I'm at. Like, even like as somebody who loves drama and loves, if the best text I can get from somebody is like, dude, did you hear about this? And I'm like, no, tell me. Like, that's my favorite thing in the world to receive. Like, that drama I was like, this is not fun. This isn't fun at all. This is, in fact, quite serious and quite sad. So, yeah, not much more to say there.
Randall Park also returns. I think all these people returned from the first one, to be honest with you. It's like all returning characters. He's Dr. Stephen Shin. He is a marine biologist. He's a scientist that was obsessed with proving that Atlantis is real. And he finally gets his proof by the end of the first movie. And here in the second one, he teams up with Black Manta because he wants to actually see Atlantis with his own eyes. But he also realizes that Black Manta is falling victim to this ancient evil. And he tries to turn to the heroes to help them stop Black Manta and his plans. I love Randall Park. I love everything he's in. He's in a million things. He's, I don't know, maybe an alum of the show. These things are hard to keep up with, but big fan of the show Fresh Off the Boat that he was the star of. I like his work in the MCU, his famous cold open in The Office, his work as Kim Jong-un in The Interview. Anytime he shows up, I'm just delighted. The man always crushes it, and I thought he's a lot of fun here too.
Yeah, I agree. No notes. He's super fun. He's a great actor. Brings a lot to any part that he's in. It's interesting seeing him here. He's playing it a little more serious. There's a little bit of comic relief here, but not nearly as much as you might expect. Like, obviously, he's not just playing Jimmy Woo here. There is, like, a gravity that he kind of gets to portray here. Like, as David Kane kind of goes further and further down this path of darkness, like, he's the one that's kind of like, oh, God, like, what have I done? Like, he's like, all he wanted to do was see Atlantis. And now he's literally helping this man destroy the planet. Which, not quite what he signed up for. But, otherwise, yeah, Randall Park is great. Everything I've seen him in, I'm a huge fan of. He's fantastic. And, yeah, just fun stuff.
Wrapping up these returning characters, Dolph Lundgren is back as how do you say this guy's name? He's the king. Nereus? Andrew, I don't recognize this guy. We're watching the first one, and friend of the show, my wife, she's like, who is that? And she's like looking it up. She's like, oh, is that Dolph Lundgren? I was like, no. I would recognize Dolph Lundgren. And like, I look it up, I'm like,
you would not. You
that's
would in
Dolph
fact
Lundgren.
not.
It doesn't look like him or sound like him. Am I just like a Rocky Four-pilled, where I think his accent is much thicker than it actually is? Because I feel like even
probably
the Punisher, which is also, 40 years old or whatever, I feel like his accent is very distinct and very clear, but maybe modern Dolph Lundgren is less distinct because I don't really hear it much here, and it just, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't look like Dolph to me. I love the casting because I love this guy, and I'm glad he gets a fun, prominent role, and he's very good at being this regal king that you don't want to mess with. I mean, if anybody is bringing it here, the gravitas, that is, I'm going to say it's Dolph Lundgren. But just fun casting, fun to see him, even though I literally don't recognize him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I could tell it was him, but you got a problem with redheads? We all look the same to you? Is that what you're saying? It is fun casting. It's nice to see him in like a prominent thing that's not just kind of like a nostalgia bait thing, like an Expendables or a Rocky thing. Just kind of seeing him in something where he's just an actor. He's just here to do this. He's here to do his job, and fun to see him.
Tamora Morrison is Aquaman's dad, Thomas. Tamora Morrison plays Jason Momoa's father. Great casting, 10 out of 10. Love it. Doesn't get a ton of screen time, but he really nails the family stuff, which is what he's here for in both movies. I love him of the show, of course, because we've done a ton of Star Wars stuff. But I just think this is spot on casting. Good work.
Oh yeah, I love it. He's an alum of the show from episode 1. Man, come on.
What? I just figured with all
the Lantern.
I thought you meant Star Wars
episode 1 of the show. He's actually not in episode 1. He's not actually in Star Wars episode 1, you noob. He's in episode 2. Did you see his face in episode 1? Did you see Jango Fett in episode 1?
I don't know, Andrew.
No,
I'm not going to waste any of my energy right now to try to remember that.
Anyway, he's literally Abin Sur in the Green Lantern movie. It's a this is great casting. He has really good chemistry with Jason Momoa. It shines through anytime they share the screen together. He is a fun character that they have worked into some other DC. Like, he's in Aquaman. He has a fun little cameo in The Flash, and then he comes back here for Aquaman 2. He's done voices in the Moana movies. He's also somebody that is a New Zealand actor, so he's also got the Maori heritage as well. He's just fantastic. Everything I see him in, I'm like, this is great.
And of course, Nicole Kidman returns as Atlanta. This is Atlanta. This is Aquaman's mother. Now, hashtag PP doesn't really have anything to do in this movie. It's like,
has nothing to do
if
with
you
this
didn't
movie,
see
yeah.
the first movie, you just saw this one, you'd be like, why is Nicole Kidman randomly just in a few scenes? But obviously an important character, much larger role in that first one. Very big get for the franchise. I don't know anything about Nicole Kidman, the person, but I love this career. Who's like, she's in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. She's on this like A-list movie star track. And at some point, she just seemingly does whatever the hell she wants. She's in indie stuff. She's in weird stuff. She's occasionally in blockbusters. I mentioned on Mike, I think, that we watched the Paddington movies for the first time. She's the villain in the first Paddington movie. She's on
Yes,
TV
indeed.
shows. She will show up anywhere. Goofy, funny, serious, sad, absolute utility player, and still has that gravitas, so that presence, that A-list feel, even though it's not really the type of movies that she makes anymore. I think, Andrew, it must be she just loves movies, you know?
I hope.
She
Kinda
just
weird
loves
she did.
walking into a movie theater, and she's the only one there. And she just sits in the middle seat with her popcorn.
Sounds real. She definitely really goes to that movie theater. I always have that moment. It comes up, and I always salute. I do my due diligence and salute Nicole
You have
Kidman.
to.
But I always have that moment where like she's standing in the theater, and then like they're showing like Creed on the screen or like Wonder Woman or something, and I'm like, did you actually go to a theater and watch this? And then she's always like, here, we make movies better. And I'm like, yes, but do you actually go here? Like, do you actually watch movies here?
I would love it if it was like a shot of her like eating popcorn and smiling, and then it shows the screen, and it's like Maria Menounos doing the pre-movie.
That's
like,
that's the real win right there. I've always wondered if like they were ever going to show like Tom Cruise movies up there, like if a Mission Impossible was coming out or something. Just be like, oh, or is that in the contract that they can never show Tom Cruise movies as part of this sizzle reel?
And then Andrew, Martin Short has a role. I didn't recognize, I guess, just the voice
Acting!
watching the movie. I now that I think about it, I think I did see like his name. I knew he was in it, but watching the movie, I forgot to like look for him. And then I get to the end, and it wasn't until like getting ready to record, you kind of casually mentioned, "Oh yeah, Martin Short's in it." I was like, "Oh, where was he?" He voices.
You were like, come again?
He voices a character, and I bet if I went back and watched the scene, I'd probably immediately recognize his voice. But it is wild casting, but it is a fun scene. I do like the part that they give him, but how he ended up in that role, I don't know. But you can never be bad about Martin Short playing a part.
You can't. I was, it's fun. It's a fun thing to see. And he plays God, what is that character's name? Kingfish. He plays the confident ruler of the sunken citadel. So he's just one of the many places they go in this movie for information. It's good stuff. I want to shout out a couple of other little things real quick. Don't want to spend too much time on them, but John Rhys Davies plays or voices at least the Brine King, who is another one of the kings of the seven kingdoms of the seas, and he's just, it's clearly just a voice role. He's clearly not actually there. It's all CG, but he's just fun. I just like seeing John Rhys Davies. Obviously, he was in the Indiana Jones movies, Lord of the Rings, and a bunch of other things. I'm never sad when he's around.
Is that the giant lobster that keeps losing an arm? Yeah,
keeps losing his claw, and he's like, "It took me a year to grow this back." Part of me believes that they just put him in a booth, and they were like, "Just complain about losing a claw for like 20 minutes, and we're just going to take the best bits out of that and go from there." But just fun thing to see, that's it. That's it. That's all I really wanted to shout out.
Oh, it's a good shout out, Andrew. But now it's time that we talk about the scenes of the movie, and we're going to start with the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom?
I mean, to me, it's just got to be the final showdown with Necros, or in Necros, I guess, with Kordax, because that's kind of like everybody at their peak. This kind of starts with kind of our final confrontation between Black Manta and Arthur, kind of in this castle. Kordax has been sealed away. And the whole premise of this is that Black Manta has been heating the earth because he's trying to thaw out Kordax's prison. But then the other flip side of that is he needs the royal blood of Atlantis to break that curse. Now, a lot of people thought this movie might go full, like, Aquaman Death of the Prince, which is a very, very, first off, old Aquaman story that was published in, it originally was a backup in Adventure Comics, and then eventually proved so popular it revived the ongoing Aquaman comic. But this was in the 70s, and it's a variety of events, some of which sees Aquaman removed from the throne of Atlantis, and he cedes his power to Vulko, who's not in this movie. Willem Dafoe played Vulko in the first movie, and they kill him off screen here. Bummer. But it's a story where, flat out, Black Manta kills Aquaman's infant child.
It's from the
brutal.
70s, which is generally before comics get too adult, too dark. Like, that's pretty early to have such a grim event.
Wild. Wild is not the word used to describe that. It's pretty messed up. And it's just like casually happens. And then like 2 issues later, suddenly the writer's like, oh, we should go back to that. And I think when the Aquaman title gets revived, that's when it cut it. Because it literally is like a year plus worth of backups in Adventure Comics of like, 6 to 8 pages. And then eventually it revives the Aquaman book, and that's another 6 or 7 issues. And so a lot of people thought this movie was going to do that. They thought that they were actually going to like kill the baby. And I was like, I hope not. That'd be messed up. And thankfully they don't. They avoid that. They just have Aquaman get beat up and bleed all over something, which is, why don't you just do that in the first place? But, so we get this final confrontation with, Black Manta and Aquaman. That's really, really cool. And then ultimately we get Necros returning as well. But then we get another kind of standoff with Ocean Master and Aquaman, where they kind of reconcile in a way. Basically, Aquaman is able to break through this curse that Kordax, the king of Necros, the lost 7th kingdom of the seas, it's called Necros, and it's full of dead people, but it wasn't always full of dead people. So it was called Necros before, and then it got cursed, and everybody turned into weird zombie warriors.
Oh yeah, that's where we got the word from, Andrew, from this Forbidden Kingdom that no one knew.
They're called Decepticons. That's literally all I thought of when they were like, it's a city called Necros. I was like, gee, you got to wonder if that's going to come back. But and then ultimately we get this we get a big face off with Orm and Arthur, where I think we kind of dive into the heart of their relationship and the mutual respect that has been kind of birthed out of this adventure. And then ultimately when Aquaman throws his trident, he Robin Hoods this. He just throws his trident through Kordax's trident, breaks it apart, and then Kordax explodes because
Robin Hood Men in Tights this?
Yeah, specifically. Although I'm guessing that's probably happened in an actual Robin Hood thing too. But I also love that apparently the key to defeating Kordax the whole time was to just hit him in the face with the trident, and I don't know why Atlan didn't do that in the first place.
Didn't think of it, Andrew.
He didn't think to hit him in the face with the trident. He instead said, I will chain you to this chair and freeze your kingdom in ice and hope no one ever finds it. One of those feels so much simpler than the other one. Hashtag PP.
You sound like Scotty Evil, just being like, well, just grab a gun, go shoot him. He's right there in the other room.
Right there.
It's a good pick, Andrew. I do like the final fight. I like whenever what's the king's Necros is the kingdom. What's the king's name?
Kordax.
Yeah, I like whenever he is possessing Ocean Master. And he's like, oh, I like your body. It's much stronger. You're an Atlantean, and you hate him even more. Like, he can feel that he hates Aquaman more than Black Manta, which I don't know if he actually does. I think he's kind of just trying to get in their heads and drive them apart. But I thought that was pretty funny. But of course, brotherly love wins out. It's a nice story, a nice finish, and like I said, completes Orm's face turn, which I do enjoy that arc throughout this movie. For my favorite scene, though, I'm gonna rewind just a bit. There's a few action scenes throughout where Aquaman and Orm have to team up to fight together, and it's always great. And kind of watching them learn to trust each other and fight together is a fun journey. And I want to pick like the middle fight. So there's this great scene where they finally catch up to where Black Manta is heating up the earth. He's been stealing this, what do you call that? Mineral or
Orichalcum?
Yeah, that stuff. He's been stealing this stuff and just burning it.
Orichalcum.
It's very important we get it right. Just to heat up the earth, like you said. So they catch up to this facility. They kind of bust their way in, and then Randall Park's character finds them in the control room. He holds up a rifle, and he says, "This blast room may be ancient, but it was made for killing Atlanteans." Kind of like a tough guy. Then he closes the door behind him, and immediately throws the gun down and goes, "Guys, I'm so sorry about that. He was just doing it for show." He's like, "Please get me out of here." This is when he pleads to like join the good side and turn on Black Manta. So I like that little comedic beat, but soon after that, Black Manta shows up. He blows up that control room, and we got this big fight. We got this big like mining octopus-looking machine kind of controlling the ore. We got Black Manta, and then we got our two heroes. And there's a lot of really fun beats. My favorite being Aquaman just picking up these canisters that hold the ore and beating the octopus machine like over the head with it. And Orm has to be like, "This stuff's very explosive. What are you doing?" And Aquaman goes, "This stuff blows up? My bad." And then he continues to bash it over the head. Yeah. And Patrick Wilson's delivering on the next line. He goes, "Then stop using it." Like, it's common sense. You shouldn't be doing that. That frustration. That's the money right there. That dynamic between the two. Like, it's what drives this movie. It's what I like about it. It's something. I'm not going to try to do any hot takes, say this one's actually better than the first one or anything, but that dynamic is my favorite thing across both movies. I think it's so much fun, and I think this fight where they haven't quite learned to work together yet, they're both trying to brute force it, and it doesn't work out for either of them, is my favorite scene in this movie.
I think this is a great pick. This whole thing here, this movie is just stuffed with such wild settings and stuff and machines, and like the fact that Black Manta's vessel throughout this movie is an ancient submarine that looks like a hammerhead shark, and
so cool.
Their research vessels that they send out of the ship are octopus. They're literally like the octopi divers or whatever they call them. Like, the whole idea of the sunken citadel, just this haven of sunken ships where all the riffraff, the Mos Eisley of the ocean, as it's called. But just all of this nonsense stuff where it's just this, like, I can't help but enjoy watching this because they literally just dove in and were like, get me all the weird Aquaman stuff you can find, and we're going to stuff it into this movie. And this is no exception. So it's this orichalcum facility in a volcano, which, awesome. That's mutated the foliage around the planet, so now you've got giant bugs and monsters all over. Like, literally, like, it's like they've said that this is like a send-up to like Ray Harryhausen type monster stuff, and like it really is. Like, there's whole segments of like the movie where you're watching Orm and Arthur. That's basically just like Sinbad. It's just that type of stuff where like it's just pure pulp adventure type stuff. And then it dives into the Aquaman stuff, and it brings in all these different pieces. Like, orichalcum itself is so wild. Like, that's literally a metal from, like, the dialogues of Plato. He literally writes a story about the Atlantis. Like, one of Plato's dialogues is about Atlantis, and orichalcum is mentioned in it. So, like, they're even doing weird research like that, like, to come up with this stuff. And, like, So, like, you can't tell me that care and attention and diligence wasn't put into this, because, like, it really was. Maybe the execution isn't to your liking, but this scene is specifically. They're inside a volcano. There's monster bugs outside of it. They're having these giant fights with the octopus divers. They're beating them up with this weird ancient mineral. And it's just, like, I don't know what else you want. Like, this is it. This is the great stuff. This is what I watch these things for, to watch the ridiculous things from the page be put onto the screen, and this does that in spades. And yeah, so this is a blast. This is a great pick. This is really where the dynamic, I think, between Orm and Arthur really kind of settles. Just, yeah, what a blast.
Yeah, I was not expecting the two of them running through a jungle being chased by giant bugs. Like, no way was that on my bingo card for what I would see in an Aquaman movie. You definitely think underwater. But we also get a ton of great underwater stuff. And, you know, the first movie has an octopus playing the drums. This one has this one has like a whole fish person band that's a lot of fun. I really like that place that they go to get help. It's like the first place they visit together after he frees Orm, and this is where Martin Short's character shows up, and it's their first fight together. And Orm is trying to act like, you know, he can do this like diligently and the regal way. He can talk to him, express the importance, and get their help. And he's like, I don't need you going in there flexing your muscles. And then once it's very clear that they are not going to offer their aid, Orm just says, fine, flex your muscles. And Aquaman busts out of the chains and starts kicking ass, and it's a lot of fun. Any scene between the two of them is going to be amongst my favorites. But I like that dynamic. I like this fun little action scene because what is that character's name that Martin Short voices
Kingfish.
here? Kingfish, yeah. To finally get him to agree, he puts they're underwater, of course. He puts a helmet on his head, like a diver's helmet, and sucks the water out slowly. So it's the
Pumping
equivalent
air into the helmet to force the water out.
So it's the equivalent of, you know, putting someone's head underwater in our world, but he's putting someone's head in air, which is just so stupid and fun.
It's nonsense, but it's so good.
A lot of really clever, fun, ridiculous, over the top fun stuff like that.
Yeah, and like I just, you know, even like the kind of heist in Atlantis, the kind of when Manta and his guys are trying to rob the orichalcum vault, and they're like running through Atlantis because they figure that's the best way to, like, you know, I don't know how that's the best way to do it, but you get this entire chase scene with Nicole Kidman and Aquaman chasing Black Manta and his guys in their octopus diving things through the city of Atlantis. So you get this weird, like, almost Bifrost looking bridge that's in and out of Atlantis. And then you get this chase through Atlantis where they're blowing up all these different things. You see all these different species, all these different fish, all these different buildings and ideas. Like, they really go for it with all of this. There's such creativity and design that went into the design of Atlantis and the look of Atlantis and just everything about it. Like, everybody's ship is shaped like a fish, and I love it. Like, the divers are octopuses, the submarines a hammerhead shark. Like,
that'd be like if our flying devices were shaped like birds.
Yeah, like, can you imagine? But it's like, and I think even Lana's thing is like a seahorse, but it's not an actual seahorse.
Right.
Like, Aquaman rides a seahorse. She has a jet ski shaped like a seahorse. But like, just that sort of ridiculous stuff. Like, that's what you want this to be. Like, it's that thing where, like, you know, one of the things I loved about Superman was that it was so unabashedly unafraid to be a Superman movie. And all the things that included, that, like, applies here to a high degree. Where, like, you cannot say this movie is ashamed of what it is.
1,000%.
This movie embraces every single thing about Aquaman that it possibly could, and then some. And you even get Aquaman wearing his weird black stealth suit. They work that in because of course they do. And you get, like, even that whole sequence, like the jailbreak of Orm, just through this underwater species that adapted to survive on land by drinking blood. I was like, whoa, brutal. Like,
Yeah.
and then they
And-
look so gnarly. Like, they're these skeleton-looking guys, and they ride these giant skeleton bugs, and I was just like, dude, this is awesome. Like,
There's this
how are
great
you-
moment there, because sort of a risk you always run with these superhero movies, and like the sense of humor and a common criticism amongst a bunch of MCU movies is like whenever your sarcastic characters or your sense of humor could potentially undercut emotional moments or badass moments. And like I've had that criticism against some movies, and I've heard it a lot. So you always kind of run that risk, especially when you have like an aloof character like Aquaman constantly cracking jokes. I think this movie does a great job of having a sense of humor, but also having the other moments and having them exist side by side without one undercutting the other. And I think a great example of that is whenever he saves Orm, he is like shriveled up. He's like, it's like Patrick Wilson's bearded head on a like skeleton man. And there's this great moment where he's running and like collapses on the shoreline, and a wave
Oh, yeah.
comes up and covers him. And when the wave goes back, he is like big and muscular, and he's rehydrated, and he pops up and he starts kicking ass. And like it would have been easy to have him like get halfway rehydrated, but he still has like one wimpy arm for like a joke or whatever. They don't do that. There's no humor. It's like, this is awesome, and we're gonna slow motion show you how cool this is. And the fact that they can have stuff like that and not undercut it with humor, I just think it handled that balance very well when it could have easily gone south.
Well, and it's not like the movie doesn't have its jokes. Like, obviously, Aquaman, Jason Momoa is like brilling his way through this entire movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's pronounced Brad. I'm sorry, but it's so you know, he's got no issue like being the quippy one, but they don't. And there's a couple of, you know, relief moments with Patrick Wilson, but by and large, they let his character be what he's supposed to be, which is that he is this one that's like the refined soldier that was like destined, that was like literally raised and to be the king of Atlantis, and he's not willing to let that guard down off the bat. And so it's this.
Dude, that's one of the best jokes in the movie, though, where he is like, ever since my father found out about you, you trained me to defeat you whenever you came for the throne. And he's like, really? Because I just kicked your ass with like no prep time. And he's like, that's not exactly how it happened. Talking about the events of the first movie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. It's good.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Anyway, that whole sequence is great. Like you said, though, they let that moment be cool. They let them have their moment later where he's like, high five, little brother, and he's like all gassed and out of air. But it's just great. It's just cool. It's like I mentioned this to you, that I texted this to you. I think that it will always be funny to me that there is a blonde Jack dude in these Aquaman movies, and he doesn't play Aquaman.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the jokes I heard about the first one. They're like, how are you going to put Patrick Wilson, a guy who literally looks like Aquaman, from top to bottom,
And make
in an
him look
Aquaman
more
movie?
like Aquaman, because I don't think he's naturally blonde. Like, I think
Make
they're
him
like...
look more like Aquaman, and then he still doesn't play Aquaman.
I definitely thought, kind of jumping to the end of this movie here, I thought where we were going, as we are, you know, rehabilitating Orm, I thought the end of the movie, Orm was going to take the throne back, because they set up that Aquaman doesn't really like doing king stuff. He doesn't like the bureaucracy. There's even a moment when Orm finds that out, and he's surprised. He's like, you didn't want the throne? He's like, no, I don't want this job. But obviously, like Orm said, he's kind of been bred for it his entire life, and now that they've patched things up, maybe the time is right for him to properly serve as king, but they don't do that. Instead, they agree to let people think that Orm died in battle, and he can go off and live his life and lay low for a while, and Aquaman will remain king. And Orm makes a great point. He has this great last speech to Aquaman, where he's like, I know you feel like you don't know what you're doing, but your instincts got us to this victory. Keep trusting your gut, and you're better at this than you realize. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see that journey for Aquaman as well. And then his final moments of the movie, he announces Atlantis' presence to the surface world. They sort of come forward, and he reunites the two worlds, and he's like, yeah, I'm king of Atlantis, we're here. He says, I'm the Aquaman, wahoo, all emphatically in Jason Momoa. And that's not only the conclusion of this movie, but the conclusion of the DCEU. Andrew, how do you feel about...
quite the conclusion.
Okay, well, because we have a mid-credit scene, is that what we're talking about?
We do. That is indeed what I'm talking about. And that, whatever. There's a moment in the movie where Jason Momoa finds a cockroach, and because Patrick Wilson has no notion, or Orm rather, Patrick Wilson knows what a cockroach is, Orm doesn't.
Yeah.
But he basically tells him, oh yeah, man, cockroaches are the shrimp of the land. And he eats it, and he thinks it's not bad. So the last scene of the DCEU, technically speaking, is Patrick Wilson having a cheeseburger and a beer off the recommendation of Arthur, and at this horrible restaurant that has a deep roach problem, this roach walks across his
on
table
a pier.
and he sticks it on his burger and he takes a bite and he goes and he basically has the not bad look on his face. And that, folks, is how the DCEU concludes.
It's great. Why not?
Wonderful. It's how
in all seriousness, it's better than a tease that they know will never pay off, right? I mean,
right.
like,
It's not like you shot 30 minutes of additional footage to add at the end of your recut of your movie that will tease things that'll never come.
wait a minute, is that Justice
PP.
League? Because I was going to reference the Flash and their Batman thing, but yeah, sure.
Speaking of Batman, that is actually one of the interesting stories about this movie. This movie did go through a lot of changes. Because originally, as we have talked about probably in the past, The Flash was meant to make a change to the status quo of the DCEU. It was not meant to kind of close the loop. What it was meant to do was remove Ben Affleck's Batman and add Michael Keaton's Batman to be the Batman of the DCEU. Henry Cavill was going to stay, but we were also now going to also have Supergirl. So there was footage shot for this movie of Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne assisting Aquaman somehow. That footage exists because it was also then reshot with Ben Affleck before ultimately just being cut from the movie entirely. So there are two different cut scenes featuring two different guys playing Batman in this movie that don't end up being in it. And I remember there was an early screening of this movie, like a test screening or whatever, where Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne was the Batman in those scenes. And audiences said, I'm confused. I don't know why it's Michael Keaton. And apparently that was part of the decision to change it, where I'm like, well, they haven't seen the movie where the switch happens. Of course they're upset. Of course it doesn't make sense. Like, that's like, it doesn't make any sense. It'd be like watching a Justice League movie without having seen Batman v Superman and being like, wait, well, where did these guys come from? Like,
yeah.
It's just one of those things where, like, you hear about studio reactions, and it's another thing that makes me feel like I can just parlay this account director role into eventually worming my way up a film studio. But so needless to say, this movie did go through a lot of changes. It's very similar to The Flash in that regard, I think, whereas the ending of The Flash eventually gets kind of reduced to, George Clooney. Like, that's eventually what the ending of that movie becomes. That's, sorry, spoilers, folks. But, because originally it was going to be Supergirl and Michael Keaton, because you can see footage or, like, stills from the set of, like, Supergirl. It's the courtroom steps, and it's Michael Keaton's Batman and Supergirl. And then eventually, when they were going to bring Cavill back, they were going to add Cavill to that scene. So it was going to be all of them. And then ultimately, they just cut that whole thing, let everybody die off screen, and then just show George Clooney as Bruce Wayne instead. Which, don't get me wrong, George Clooney, fun little... I thought it was fun. I know people, we have our thoughts about George Clooney as Batman. I thought it was a perfectly harmless little cameo, because it is. And it also, you knew it wasn't going anywhere. And so now... So that's the hallmark.
Well,
the Blue Beetle doesn't really get hit by this.
I don't want to sidetrack this episode, but James Gunn is still referring to The Flash as the soft reboot of the DC that leads to the DCU, which we've now seen Superman. I don't get it, but
I don't either.
I think I'm just to a point where I just have to
like,
not
is that
get...
something he said recently? Because I know he kind of said that originally, where he was like, "Oh, the Flash leads into the new wave," but like, he can't like say, "Don't watch any of these because they don't matter." Like, he has to play up that they're still important.
I don't know how
like,
up to date it is, because he also said like Blue Beetle is that character's canon to the DCU.
Here's what I'll tell you: Peacemaker is canon because it has to be. Superman is canon. I don't believe anything outside those is canon.
Yeah,
at
but
this point,
Peacemaker season 1 connects to like all of the DCEU.
It connects to the Suicide Squad, sure.
And the final scene of season 1.
whatever. It's got cameos from the Justice League in it without even seeing Cavill's face. Like,
What do you? Okay.
none of that matters.
Anyway, like I said, I don't want to derail this episode on that. I don't know. Well,
None of it
maybe
matters.
things will take shape as things move forward. But Andrew, I'm sure it's obvious. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a good time. I enjoyed the
time.
first one. Finally watching that, and I really have a hard time understanding the dichotomy between the reception. I think look, if you saw this movie, you like the first one, you don't like the second one, I'm not trying to come at your opinion or say it's wrong or anything, but I think a lot of the reception has to be the fact that, again, 2023 superhero fatigue, and we knew the DCEU was over.
Ending.
This
Yeah.
really looked like as a joke. We knew a reboot was coming. No one was going in with very high hopes. They knew teasers wouldn't go anywhere. Aquaman shows up in The Flash. He has a cameo there, but like, why? This whole thing's ending. So I think just really garbled messaging really hurts the opinion of this movie. But standing on its own, I thought it was a great time. I feel pretty similarly. I don't know if I honestly can't remember if we did a best of the best on Thor: Love and Thunder. I think we did, but we enjoyed that movie, Andrew. And that's a movie that, everyone loved Thor Ragnarok. Love and Thunder was much more divisive, we'll say. But like, I look at those two movies back to back, I'm like, this is like the same tone. But even then, I feel like there's a greater tone shift between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder than there is between Aquaman 1 and 2. This, I think, is even more cut from the same cloth. Even more of what you love from the first one. So I have a real hard time understanding the dramatic drop-off it has. But look, I can only speak for myself, and I say this movie's a lot of fun.
I am inclined to agree. I want to check something real quick, though, before I get it. I guess the first Aquaman, like, it's a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes for the first Aquaman. So, like, it's not like a sterling certified fresh score. It's still, it's pretty, I think it's safe to say the critical response to the first one is mixed. The audience score is actually lower, though, which is funny, but the sample size is much higher. But it is interesting to me, because, like, to me, if you enjoyed the first Aquaman, I think it's even what I told you. If you liked Aquaman, I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't enjoy Aquaman 2. And
Yeah.
I actually think one of the best things that Aquaman 2 has going for it, and I think the first Aquaman does this too, like, there's not really any view outside of the DCEU in either of these movies, really. There were intentions to do that here when they were going to build towards some sort of crisis event. That was the rumor at the time. That this was all going to build to, like, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we were going to get, I don't know, who knows? I'm sure one day somebody will do a documentary / tell all about, what Walter Hamada's plans for DC were before James Gunn came in and kind of reconfigured it all. But it's a standalone adventure, largely. There's not really any additional viewing required. You can basically just watch Aquaman and then this, and that's all you really need. And I think that's kind of the best thing about them. Like, they really are standalone in that regard. Like, you don't need to watch Batman v Superman or Justice League to follow what's happening in the Aquaman movies. They're fun. They're fine. They're not going to hurt anything by watching them. But well, your mileage may vary. But hashtag PP. But they're standalone adventures. They're pretty straightforward. Everything you need about the plot of this is derived from the original, and in that regard, I think, yeah, they're a blast.
Well, just like we capped off Sony's Spider-Man universe with Craven earlier this month, we have now capped off the DCEU, the final film in that universe with Aquaman 2. Lots of end of an eras coming up here. It's almost bittersweet if you think about it, or just think about how far we have come in the superhero universe cinematic world, Andrew. We've got more superhero movies coming up this month, but right now, it's time that we enter AA. It's time for Ask Andrew. It's time where I get to ask you a question, and you legally have to answer it. If you would like to leave a question for Andrew, you can do so by joining our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. There's a channel in there where you can ask your questions. Andrew cannot see that channel. He will not know your question until I read it aloud. But I thought it'd be fitting this week to ask you a very simple question, Andrew. We've seen every movie the DCEU has to offer. I want to know which one's the best one, or which one's your favorite. I'll do a quick rundown through the movies here, just to refresh everybody. The entirety of the DCEU starts with Man of Steel, then Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Suicide Squad, Black Adam, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and then finally, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. What's your favorite one, Andrew?
Man, it's sad when you say them all out loud. No. We just talked about this, but if I'm watching one of these, like, for pleasure, like, for fun, it's probably going to be the Suicide Squad. Like, it's James Gunn, obviously. It's easy to just point to that and be like, oh, yeah, man, that one's great. But, like, that's the one that, like, I would probably go to first, is the Suicide Squad. I do like the first Aquaman quite a bit. I do like the first Shazam quite a bit. I also do stealthily enjoy Birds of Prey. I know there's a lot of changes there from the comics, and there's a lot of stuff people weren't super happy with, but I did like Birds of Prey. There's a lot of moments that I like in the DCEU, but overall, it's just a very, very interesting experiment. I mean, this is, if you don't include Zack Snyder's Justice League, that's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 15 films. DCEU lasted for 15 movies, which is kind of ridiculous to say out loud. And it did those 15 movies in 10 years. Like, Man of Steel is June of 13. Aquaman is December of 23. I guess 11 years, technically. But
yeah, considering it starts off with Man of Steel and the reception that it has, and then Batman v Superman and the troubling box office it has, like, right out the gate, it seems to be in trouble, but it powers its way to 15.
Well, and it's even wilder because there's a 3-year gap between Man of Steel and BVS. So 14 of these come out between March of 2016 and December of 23. So it's actually more like 7 or 8 years. It's like 7 or 8 years for 14
years.
movies. So let's see here. You had 2 in 16, 2 in 17, 1 in 18, 1 in 19, 2 in 20, 2 in 21, 1 in 22, and then I just had 4 in 2023. So even alone, the fact that there were 4 in 1 month, and it's
1 year.
1 year, sorry. But it's, yeah, I mean, if I'm watching one of these for fun, it's going to be the Suicide Squad. What's the best? I don't know. But, like, the Suicide Squad I have a lot of fun with. There's some holdovers from the DCEU. Obviously, it's James Gunn's style of humor, which I think is perfectly suited to the Suicide Squad, which is obviously why he did it. The Guardians of the DC Universe on Earth, as they've been called. But by me just now, that's it. It's... What I have always said about the DCEU is that there was a lot of potential. And hashtag PP, a lot of it doesn't live up to that. And, Superman just came out. It's doing pretty well. I liked it a lot. We'll see where it goes. But an interesting legacy it will leave nonetheless.
Interesting about the DCEU is that its trouble seemed to come from the characters you feel like would be slam dunks, like Superman and Batman. Like, I think people feel okay about Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman, but, like, the movies he showed up in had a lot of trouble. Man of Steel, we've talked about. But movies that are, but characters that are lesser known seem to be, like, the high points. Like, Aquaman. Like, we're finally getting an Aquaman movie. Oh, it's great. Wonder Woman, I know everyone knows who Wonder Woman is. I mean, it's silly to say she's like a lesser character, but Wonder Woman on film was an unproven thing, and people loved that first Wonder Woman movie. Shazam, a character a lot of people don't know anything about. Some people maybe know the old TV show, and that's one of the favorites. That's probably what I would pick as my favorite of the DCEU is that first Shazam movie. But again, the bigger characters, the big crossover movie, Justice League, like those are where the problems are. The Suicide Squad, the second attempt, is one of the more popular movies with a bunch of lesser known characters. But then once it comes time to make sequels for those characters, Wonder Woman, Shazam, and Aquaman, the sequels have trouble like finding their audiences. It's such a weird start and stop thing, but I think there's undeniable high points. It'd be silly to say this entire 15 movie run is for naught. There's a lot of fun to be had. There's even some great movies in there, I think. We've covered a lot of them, so we said a lot of positives about them, but it's over. We'll see how much of this gets reincorporated. Man, any quick thoughts on Jason Momoa as Lobo, Andrew? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to see that next year. In fact, at the time of this recording, I think James Gunn just sent the first official teaser poster for Supergirl.
Look out.
Should be a good time. But until next week, when we will be back with Captain America, Brave New World, just remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can find him on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some best of the rest of merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. So if any listeners, if you're the one that accidentally sent that money, let me know. I'll send it to you.
What's the number?
The phone number?
Yeah.
What do I put it in the episode?
I mean, no, but like you can cut it out. I'm just curious, like if I know who it is.
I really doubt. Why would? Let me find.
I don't know, man. I have lots of phone numbers, but I don't know.
Michael, 215 friends. They sent me $10 and then $30. I can't see their phone number or anything.
And they've never contacted you before for anything.
No.
Weird. Anyway. Good luck with all that.
All right, let's play that theme song.
Is that really the intro to this episode?
Yeah.
Beauty. I love it.